That's Section 123 of the 1986 Insolvency Act in the UK. So that's the kind of critical point where companies are in trouble. So I was doing a lot of distress deals where the underlying business was okay, but they were really short of cash flow, and I would buy either the whole company for £1 or a vast majority of the company for £1, turn it around and sell it. Or worst case scenario, I couldn't turn it around and we just close it down, but you could do several of these a year. So if a few didn't quite work out, at least you had one last roll of the dice and you tried to save things. But what I started to notice was that there were loads of really good quality companies, companies that were doing it, that were profitable, that were debt-free, well-run, that have been going for a really long time. And yet, amazingly, from an expansion perspective, they didn't have too many options. So they didn't have access to proper banking facilities. If they wanted to borrow money from the bank, they had to pay the house. They didn't have VCs or private equity companies particularly interested in them. They didn't have a local competitor that would necessarily buy them because they're a bit small still, even when you're generating decent levels of profit. I was just astonished that there were these great businesses that didn't have too many options. And so, by that time, I was living in Singapore in the Central Business District, and I've lived there for 13 years. I'm currently at my house in Dubai, but not in Singapore. And we're surrounded by money, and it was really apparent to me that there's tons of money in private equity, there's tons of money in capital markets, there's tons of money in the world. It just doesn't seem to find its way into small business. And this really got me fascinated, and I started to really drill down into this phenomenon because if you look at small businesses, I mean, you're in the UK. In the UK, 50% of GDP comes from small businesses, and it's over 90% of the private sector workforce. So nearly everybody works in a small business, and they generate half the economic output of the country, and yet they're completely detached from all the money in the world. If you look at the top 500 asset managers, which are like, sovereign wealth funds, private equity funds,